We're going to look at a variety of ways of solving some miscellaneous different types of equations. The first type of equation here, we're reminding that factoring is always the fastest method of solving an equation. And here we have an equation that has 4 terms. One thing I look for when an equation has 4 terms is I look for a way of grouping. And if I take these two and these two, wait a minute, I could take an x squared out of this first 2 and I would get an x plus 3. And really that's what I've got here for the second part. So let's say that's an x plus 3 times 1. Now I'm going to take the x plus 3 out of both of these parts of an x plus 3 times x squared plus 1. Now I can solve the first part and get x equals -3. And looking at the second part, I get x squared equals -1. So x equals plus or minus I. Do remember when we're taking a square root, we do need both the plus and the minus. So here's my 1, 2, 3 factors for an x cubed term. Let's try, this is 4 terms, so let's try grouping again. I think I can take an x squared out of the first 2 terms and I'll get an x minus 1. These both seem to have a 5, but to get I really want to get the same x minus 1. So if I'm going to get that x minus 1, I better take out a -5 and that give me a positive 5. Yeah, that's good. So I have my x minus 1 and x squared minus 5 equals 0. So x equals 1 and x squared will equal 5, so x equals plus or minus the square root of 5. Again, it's x cubed. I've got 3 roots. This one's only 2 terms. Now, the first thing I always do look at is notice there's an x in both of these. So now I have x times x cubed plus 8 equals 0. Oh, I remember that we have, this is a sum of cubes, and we can factor a sum of cubes. Now this first will give me x equals 0, and there's one of my answers. For a sum of cubes, this will factor into x plus 2, since 8 is 2 cubed. And then this is the same, and then it's x squared minus 2x plus 4. Now, this will give me x equals -2, so now I've got 2 of my 4 answers. I don't think this will factor, so I'll have to use a quadratic formula. X equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 4ac, so 4 minus 16, all over 2a. So 2 plus or minus the square root of -12 over 2. See, 12 is 4 times 3. So will equal 2 plus or minus 2i, because of the negative, square root of 3 over 2, or x equals 1 plus or minus I times the square root of 3. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4 solutions, since it was an x to the 4th. Now we have square root, or they're sometimes called radical equations. Equations involving square roots are solved by squaring both sides once a radical is isolated on one side. Notice it has to be isolated on one side of the equation. Now, some notes. Extraneous roots may occur with an equation involving any even root. it's an even root, we may get extraneous roots. You must isolate a radical on one side before squaring both sides, reminding you of that. And due to the extraneous roots possibility, you must check all the roots in the original equation. Now let's actually practice doing this. We need the radical isolated on one side. So x equals the square root of 15 minus 2x. Now that I have it isolated on one side, I can square both sides. By doing that, I end up with x squared equals 15 minus 2x. I now have a quadratic, so get it on one side, equal to 0, so this will make it 2x minus 15 equals 0, factored into x plus 4, x plus 5, and x minus 3 to equal 0. So x equals negative 5 and x equals 3. Now I have these two solutions, but I remember my notes about extraneous roots. I have to check these solutions. So checking the negative 5, I've got negative 5 minus the square root of 15 plus 10 equals 0. So negative 5 minus 5, that doesn't equal 0. So I have to throw out the solution. And now I'll check the 3. 3 minus the square root of 15 minus 2x, so minus 6 equals 0. 3 minus 15 minus 6 is 9, that square root is 3, equals 0, and we're good. This one checks, and we have the solution of x equals 3.